Chapter 133 Thieving Skills. I am Wu Juzi. As soon as I saw brother, I felt particularly familiar. Could it be we were brought together by the karma between our previous incarnations? Come. Let us later drink some wine and become sworn brothers. As soon as Taoist priest Qingwen had finished speaking, this happily smiling chap suddenly scurried over and threw himself in front of Han Li. He extended a hand to firmly grasp Han Li's arm and then said these words with a face of deep emotion. Han Li was initially startled, but soon after he softly smiled. It's not that we can't be brothers, but can you not touch my body so casually with your hand? My tastes are quite ordinary, I don't have even the slightest interests in beautiful, young men. Han Li mockingly said with a slight smile. An arm was suddenly raised into the air and turned over by Han Li. It was grabbed by the wrist as quick as lightning. This wrist had already been secretly extended halfway into Han Li's front jacket. Cough, cough. This is truly strange. How did my hand run off into brother's bosom? It was definitely impatient to greet brother Han once I saw him. The youth separated from Han Li on the spot. First he blushed with a surprised complexion, but after a few dry coughs and a few murmurs, he slowly withdrew his hand as if nothing had happened. Han Li did not have any intention of holding back the youth's wrist. When the youth used force, Han Li had voluntarily let go. At this time, Han Li had actually grew quite an interest toward this Wu Juzi. He was obviously a cultivator, but he uses the thieving skills of a person from Jianghu. This pickpocketing of his was truly quite interesting. However, his technique was quite excellently practiced. Were it not Han Li but another cultivator, they would perhaps be truly unaware of his dirty trick. Surely quite a few people in this room had already suffered from his antics. Just as Han Li thought this, he heard Hu Pinggu's schadenfreude-laced voice. Boy Wu, have you met your match? Brother Han actually caught you at the scene. Are you going to continue boasting that your thieving skills are top-notch with these petty thefts of yours? What about it? This young master is satisfied. You want me to steal from you one more time? What haven't I stolen? You don't have anything of the slightest value from head to toe. What have you come to Great South meeting for? Wu Juzi harshly said, curling his lip. What did you say, brat? Did I not yet settle your debt the last time you stole from me? Hu Pinggu suddenly jumped from her chair with an ashen complexion. In addition, her fully bearded husband, though he did not say anything, had his hand on the broadsword behind his back with eyes glaring at the youth. Han Li would later find out this Xiongda Li was actually a mute and therefore relied on his wife for all his affairs. Enough. We are all cultivators and should remain amiable. You two back down. Do not argue again. When Taoist priest Qingwen saw this, he wrinkled his brow. However, after the words of conciliations were said, he solemnly said toward Juzi, Brother Wu, I know your thefts are only for fun, but you must return the objects to their owner every time. You mustn't have malicious intention. However, if you continue to do this, you will provoke disaster sooner or later. Not all of your victims will be easy to deal with. If you were to offend somebody from a cultivator clan, it wouldn't be that we wouldn't want to help but rather that we simply couldn't. That is why you shouldn't pull these kinds of pranks anymore. When the youngster heard Taoist priest Qingwen's heartfelt words, he could not help but feel embarrassed. He scratched the back of his head and sincerely mentioned, actually on the journey to the Great South Valley, I accidentally obtained these thieving skills. But because I found it amusing, I could not help but practice it subconsciously on everyone. However, since this brother Han could defeat this little brother, others at the Great Assembly should be much more difficult to deal with. That's why everyone should feel relieved, since this little brother will not play with his life and will not use his stealing skills at the Great Assembly. When the Taoist priest heard the youngster's words, his face showed an overjoyed expression. Brother Wu's talent is quite outstanding. At this age, he's already trained to the great circle of 8th layer. He is the true genius among us cultivators. It's better that he behaves himself this way. This little brother will not let down Taoist priest Qing Wen's expectations. I request that everyone will better take care of me in the future. Wu Jiuzi gave a deep salute to everyone individually. After doing so, the hatred towards him was resolved. Although Hu Pinggu's face still had a somewhat angry expression, her complexion was much better than before. It seemed she had reluctantly accepted his goodwill. Taoist priest Qing Wen turned his head over and said to Han Li with a smile, "I didn't think that Brother Han who had just joined us would immediately perform such a great service. This humble Taoist wishes to thank you." Han Li faintly smiled and declined with a soft voice, "What does this have to do with me? This matter was completely handled by Taoist priest." The Taoist priest shook his head with a smile and spoke no further. However, at this moment, the drone of an indistinct voice sounded out. "Taoist priest, for what did you call us all over? Why doesn't this Buddhist monk join in?" It turned out to be the fair-skinned fatty had uttered these words. However, this man was actually qualified to speak to Qing Wen in this manner. Han Li have been long aware that among them, the fatty had the greatest magic power, deeper than that of Qing Wen. That was why no one dared to mock the fatty's coarse words. Even that Wu Jiuzi had a deadpan appearance and didn't show the slightest bit of difference. It seems this world of cultivators is just about the same as the secular Jianghu. Only those possessing strength will be respected. Han Li thought as he saw this jeer. Brother Huang is quite an impatient person. Very well, this humble Taoist will reveal the reason why he has called all of you here. Qing Wen waved his horsetail whisk and said without the slightest trace of anger. The Great South meeting has already passed half of its duration. It will be concluded in 10 days. Shouldn't everyone conclude their business? If you want to set up a vendor stall, then it would be best if we do it together. That is why I sought to discuss this with everyone. As for Master Ku Sang, he already finished exchanging the items he brought. Therefore he needn't again participate in this discussion. So it was like that. I should indeed exchange some items for a few spirit stones and buy a few other items. The people in the room started to whisper. After a lively discussion, everyone except Han Li expressed interest in setting up a street vendor stall the next day. Brother Han does not wish to participate? Wu Jiuzi asked, somewhat amazed. The others also looked toward Han Li with doubt. I initially only brought a few items with me. Last night, I happened to meet a few appropriate customers and already finished exchanging everything. That is why I don't plan to participate with you. With a calm look, Han Li indifferently explained. So it's like that. You really don't need to be bothered with us. Brother Han is truly fortunate to have finished exchanging his items after just arriving. Hu Pinggu mentioned somewhat enviously. The others also shot Han Li an envious "you are truly lucky" look. After Han Li heard this, he smiled and spoke no further. Taoist priest Qing Wen saw that business discussions were finished. He happily stood and said, "We should all rest well tonight and wake up spirited tomorrow. I hope you will all earn good profits." Once everyone heard this, they also stood and smiled, preparing to leave. At this time, Taoist priest Qing Wen seemed to have remembered something. His expression suddenly turned serious, and he said to everyone, "By the way, after the Great South meeting finishes, everyone shouldn't depart by themselves. I heard that after the past few Great South meetings ended, a few rogue cultivators such as ourselves disappeared without a trace. It would be better to be a bit more careful. It can be assumed that who is involved would not miss the opportunity to attend the Great Tian Wadai Immortal Ascension Assembly. Everyone should stay together to enhance their safety." After everyone heard the Taoist priest say rogue cultivators had gone missing, the He brothers and Hu Pinggu faces paled. Rogue cultivators Hong Lian and Wu Jiuzi were bewildered. Fatty Huang Xiaoyan coldly snorted with a gloomy expression. Right. Us brothers approve of Taoist priest Qing Wen's words. It would be better to stay together as a group. As a married couple, we do not disagree. Both the He brothers and Hu Pinggu with her husband agreed. It seemed they were greatly fearful toward this matter.